Two heads, one tail, Yang Yin. Two tails, no, two heads, one tail, Yang Yin. Two heads, one tail, Yang Yin. Three tails, Old Yin. Three heads, Old Young. Two heads, one tail, Yang Yin. Our bottom trigram or inner trigram will be read as broken, 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 or yin, yin, yin. This is Kun Earth. Kun is Earth, open to receive and support what comes to her, providing for its full development. She makes inspiration manifest, gives it form, and sustains its growth. Earth is available to be used, ready to lend her strength to the work without limit. She protects and accepts all things in their totality, present and potential, in an unconditional embrace. Earth is mother, found in the southwest and the harvest time of late summer and early autumn. The top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, broken. This is Con water. Con is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure, and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. Con water above Kun earth give us the primary hexagram of 8. Once our changing lines 4 and 5 transform from old yin and old yang to young yang and young yin, our top or outer trigram will be read as solid, broken, broken. This is Zen thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the trigram family, the first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. Zen thunder above Kun earth is hexagram 16. The titles to our hexagrams we will get from Lu I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. Our primary hexagram 8 is accord, learning through association, obedience in danger, rectification of imbalance. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 16, joy, proper timing in action. Joy and accord. All right. Next, we will look at both of our hexagrams in Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. Actually, you know what? It's been a little while. We'll look at it in Kibi's I Ching Tarot first. And get the images to each. 8 accord. Kibi calls holding together. Holding together, friendship, harmony, mutual aid, affection. Water takes in everything, even the dirty things, and flows downward, becoming purified before you know it. The top line is that friendly time has gone already. And 16, joy. She calls enthusiasm. The second one from the bottom looks like Jake the dog or something playing a harmonica. Enthusiasm. Art, pleasure, beforehand, neglect. In order to enjoy the art, preparation is necessary in advance, and it is necessary to put everything together as a one. In the case of the Lin, Yao, at the top, enjoys too much and neglects things. All right, now out of Hilary Barrett. 8 accord, our primary hexagram. Hilary Barrett calls seeking union. Key questions: where do you belong? When we approach the I Ching to consult the Oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Key questions: where do you belong? Is this a good fit? Do you choose to join? Oracle: seeking union, good fortune. At the origin of Oracle consultation, from the source, ever-flowing constancy, no mistake. Not at rest, coming on all sides. For the latecomer, pitfall. To seek union is to search for connection and belonging, discovering how it all fits together and creating a new world out of relationships. It begins where divination begins, at your very source. Ask yourself why it was important to ask this question. Get to know where you're coming from. When you find the source, you can flow perpetually out from there towards the right choices and connections. Such self-examination is not a mistake. It's the best way to avoid mistakes. It gives you and your relationships the authenticity of water, which flows together on the earth without changing its nature. Seeking union is natural, but not without stress. Singleness of purpose attracts restlessness from within and without. Demands are made on you from all directions at once. Not all the people or all the feelings that appear will be helpful. Yu the Great conquered the Chinese floods through a lifetime of hard toil. When his work was complete and the land was safe, he summoned the lords and spirits to a meeting to found the new world. One of them, Fang Feng, came late. Yu had him executed. To recreate a world of relationships like Yu is good fortune. To hesitate and come late, like Fang, is not. The decisive leader has to eliminate the non-committal spirit, the one who procrastinates and isn't quite sure whether to believe in this new union. Image. Above earth is the stream, seeking union. The ancient kings founded countless cities for relationship with all the feudal lords. The streams flow together naturally over the earth. People, too, have their natural confluences. The ancient kings strengthened these by building cities, near the rivers perhaps, following the contours of the landscape. You can support and commit to your relationships in the same way, recognizing their natural flow and working with it. Sequence. Seeking union follows from Hexagram 7, the army. Crowds naturally have occasion to seek union. First, everything gathers around a single goal, and then there is a desire to connect and form relationships within the group. After the battles have been fought, it's time to start creating a new realm. And our supporting hexagram 16, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Hexagram 16, enthusiasm. Key questions. What do you imagine? What inspires you? How can you use your enthusiasm constructively? Oracle, enthusiasm, fruitful to set up feudal lords and mobilize the armies. The Chinese word for enthusiasm contains an elephant, a character that also means image. The elephant is magnificent, strong, a source of delight, and also unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Imagination and anticipation move us with ease. With them, we can be motivated and inspired, or we can be carried away by the power of our own story. The energetic charge of enthusiasm can be used to set great things in motion. It is good to use it to expand and enrich your experience by extending your network of communication and support, marshaling your resources ready for future challenges. And it is also good to use such structures to channel the motive power of enthusiasm and keep it from running amok. Then its brightly colored images can be woven securely into the larger patterns and meanings of life. Image. Thunder bursts forth from the earth, enthusiasm. The ancient kings composed music to honor virtue. They celebrated and worshipped the Supreme Lord, joining with their ancestors. Thunder bursts forth from the quiet earth in spring, waking the plants, stirring everything into growth. The ancient kings channeled the joy of spring into music. Singing with the thunder, the people participate in ever-rising energies. Their spontaneous emotion becomes part of a rich and subtle fabric of relationships. The harmony of music, veneration for the supreme divinity, and the family of the ancestors. Sequence. Enthusiasm follows from Hexagram 15, integrity. One who possesses greatness and is also capable of integrity is naturally enthusiastic. Integrity grounds enthusiasm, giving its potent images the foundation in ordinary reality that makes them visions rather than fantasies. Someone who has an authentic vision is of great potential, Someone who has an authentic vision of great potential cannot help but be enthusiastic. And next we will look at our changing lines 4 and 5, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, take precedence over all other elements, and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Hexagram 8, seeking union, changing line 4. Outside seeking union, constancy, good fortune. Connecting with what's outside puts one's own experience in perspective. It's a relationship to something different and to something larger, a bigger story, a broader view, something that expands and opens. To relate with steadiness of purpose to something outside your experience brings good fortune. And hexagram 8, changing line 5. A demonstration of seeking union. The king uses 3 beaters, lets the game in front go. The city people are not coerced. Good fortune. When the king hunts, he leaves a way open for the game to escape. Only those animals who spontaneously come towards him will be taken. He governs the city in the same way, without forcing people. When you are seeking union, take charge like this king. Go out into the field and look for the connections you want. Be inviting and encouraging, and then leave the way open for people to choose their own direction. What's meant to come will come. Next, we will look at Venabelle Wen's I Ching The Oracle, which is an updated translation annotated with cultural and historical references, restoring the I Ching to its shamanic origins. Primary Hexagram 8, Accord, Hilary Barrett calls Alliance, B-I. The Oracle. This is the omen of one who follows a good role model, cultivates greatness, then becomes a role model that others follow. Alliance of heart and mind. Eternal well-being is prophesied. Be a connector, one who brings people together. To bring many together, you occupy many worlds. Have your foot in many doors. Then, when tides turn, no matter which direction, you have a safety net. 2 stand together, one linked to the other, bonding for strength and alliance, kinship. Seek alliances with those who share your truth. Kings gain innumerable territories by maintaining close relations with feudal lords. Good auspices to come. To conquer the great floods and enemies, hold an assembly of the gods on the mountain. This is an auspicious hexagram that speaks of good fortune. It bodes well-being if your intentions are in good faith. The pure of heart will be free of blame. However, the last to arrive meets misfortune. The last chieftain to arrive at the king's court was beheaded. A budding rebellion is simmering. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Enthusiasm, you. The Oracle, action with enthusiasm. Renounce hesitation. Do not let chronic conditions hold you back. Prepare for the advance. Demonstrate enthusiasm and you motivate not just yourself, but also the spirit realms to support you. Honor others with enthusiasm and they will reciprocate. Let the energy of life invigorate you so you can invigorate others. Know your purpose and reason for action, and you will never cease to take action. When you are relentless with your drive, nothing can or will stop you. Thunder shakes the earth. Prepare for an advance. Auspicious to take military action. You will be at an advantage when you seek the counsel of a master. Proceed with the endeavor at hand, but first seek out sage advice before initiating action. Do not act in haste. The archer studies the target before an arrow is shot. The king honors the dignitaries with music and celebration. The king honors the divine. The king honors the ancestors. This is a hexagram of great gusto and verve. When you can understand these honoring acts of the king, then you too can accomplish beyond even your highest ambitions. To be motivated to achieve, you must first be motivated by the energy of life, an auspicious omen for taking military action. Next, we will look at our changing lines 4 and 5, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Our primary hexagram 8, alliance, changing line 4. Bond in union with those who support your motivations and focus. Hold them to that shared mission. Your perseverance will become your fortune. Auspicious to proceed. Seek alliances with those who share your mission and who can act with you as a single mind, focused on one shared objective. Seeking out those who share your single mind will motivate your own perseverance and bring about a fortuitous outcome. In changing line 5. The king gives chase to the birds and beasts from 3 sides, leaving a path for the prey to survive. The fiefdom is spared, an auspicious omen. Let the weaker believe they've won. Be merciful to those who are lesser than you. To defeat them would be tyrannical. When you think you have to humiliate every opponent to assert your strength, you are not strong at all. The truly strong are strong enough to appear meek. The 5th line is a reference to benevolent and ethical hunting practices. When the king chases game, the hunt is only from 3 sides, always leaving the front open so a bird or beast who flees fast enough can seize the opportunity to be spared. This is a metaphor for benevolent and merciful rulership. Always give people an out. Be humane and show clemency. I'm really curious about our secret hexagram. We'll find out what that is later. As for now, we will look into I Ching, the Taoist I Ching by I-ming, which is highly alchemical in nature. I-ming was a Taoist adept himself. Accord. Accord is auspicious, investigating and ascertaining if the basis is always right, there is no error. Then the uneasy will come, but the dilatory are unfortunate. Explanation. Accord has the meaning of association with one another and learning from one another. In the body of the hexagram, 1 yang dwells in the place of honor, while the 5 yins above and below all follow it accordingly. Also, the quality of the hexagram is obedience by which to get through danger. Therefore, it is called accord. This hexagram, representing yin following yang, follows on the previous hexagram, contention. In contention, yin does not obey yang, but instead overthrows yang. Yin and yang are at odds. The 5 elements injure each other, harming their reality, therefore ending in calamity. If you know this is wrong and cultivate the reverse, yin does not overthrow yang, but submits to yang. Yin and yang harmonize, the 5 elements are one energy, essence is stable and life is solid. This is the path of making the wrong accord with the right, making the artificial accord with the real. What is auspicious about accord is that it is good to accord with what is right and what is real, and nothing is more important than to accord with the basis of true reality. The basis here is the primordial positive energy trapped in the palace of water. This energy is produced by heaven, and so is called the vitality of the true one, the water of the true one, and the energy of the true one. This is the basic energy that produces things. In human beings, this energy is basic humanity, which is the reality in which yin and yang are united. But this basic energy, falling into yin, is covered up by acquired conditioning. It is easy to lose and hard to find. If you are not utterly empty and calmly attentive, with your mind steadfast and your will firm, you cannot recover it. That is why one can only be free from error if one investigates and ascertains the basis that is always right. If one is always correct, under that correctness rises the basic energy, and once the basic energy is restored, yin energy submits to it. Then this is the original flawless, undamaged, integral pattern of nature, which is impeccable, the complete original basis. The classic The Way and Its Power says, effecting utter emptiness, maintaining calm attention, as myriad things act in concert, I thereby watch the return. The spring suffusing the garden says, the 7 times restored elixir is in people. First, you should refine the mind and await the time. The way to be always correct is to become empty and keep quiet, to refine the mind. If you do not refine the mind thoroughly, the true yin within yourself will not become manifest. If you do not become thoroughly empty and quiet, the external true yang will not come. If you want to conquer feeling, first conquer essence. Then the uneasy will come. This is whereby to refine the mind and wait for the time, to seek restoration. In the word uneasy are various processes, like adjustment according to the time and warding off danger. This explains the meaning of always right. If I am uneasy and the other then comes, this is what is referred to by the saying, if you want to get, first you must give. First giving means allowing the other's wish, making oneself accord with the other, thereby to get the other's pleasure. Afterward, getting means that sincerity can move people. Others come and accord with oneself, whereby one can take their living energy. When before and after are clear, and other people and oneself are all taken care of, then the restored elixir can be crystallized. Otherwise, if one cannot first give, and idly imagines others will come, what should be first is put after, and what should be after is put first, reversing the accord. This is called acquired conditioning. As it is said, if ordinary people want to seek heaven, when they seek it, they need worldly goods. If they give little and withhold much, the spirits and immortals will not come, and they are sure to have bad luck. How can they affect good fortune and realize the Tao? In our supporting hexagram 16, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Joy. It is advantageous to set up a ruler and mobilize the army. Explanation. Joy is happiness. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is thunder, active, and below is earth, compliant. Acting in accord with the time, active yet also compliant, it is therefore called joy. This hexagram represents summoning yang by yin. It follows on the previous hexagram, great possession. In great possession, strength and understanding are employed together. It is the path of wealth and daily renewal. For wealth to be daily renewed, it is necessary to act in accord with the time. Only then can one succeed. If one can accord with the time, then the promotion of strength can be correct, and the use of intelligence can be appropriate. The firing process does not go wrong. The measure of the elements is regulated. Haste and relaxation are in order, and advance and withdrawal accord with the appropriate time and measure, reaching effortlessness by way of effort. There is no problem of losing what one has gained. What is the happiness of harmonious action like? As an image of harmonious action, nothing compares to setting up a ruler and mobilizing the army. The ruler is the leader of the nation, and the general is the leader of the army. When the leader is set up in accord with the timing of heaven, then the country is peaceful. When the mobilization of the army is in accord with people's hearts, then the troops are complete. The mind is the leader of the body, like the ruler of the general. As it is beneficial to set up a ruler and mobilize the army for harmonious action, so is it beneficial to rectify the mind and train the body. If one acts in accord with the time, it is beneficial. If one's action is not in accord with the time, it is not beneficial. When it is beneficial, one attains happiness. When it is not beneficial, one is not happy. The path of producing happiness is the consummation of harmonious action. Yeah, let's read the changing lines and then, I think I want to change how I do this. We'll read the changing lines last. Let's read the commentary section. We just read the text section of each of our hexagrams. Now let's read the commentary section. Hexagram 8, accord, and then we'll go back and read our changing lines. Water above, earth below. There is water on the earth in accord. Thus did the kings of yore establish myriad realms and associate with their representatives. Accord means familiarity, association, closeness. Above is water, below is earth. Water provides moisture without bound. This is the presence of water on the earth. Water is that which provides myriad things and beings with nutritive moisture. Water travels on the earth, flowing without obstruction. The earth is boundless. This is the image of accord. What the ancient kings saw in this was that the world is vast and there's a limit to the exercise of government by one person, so that one person cannot associate familiarly with everyone. Therefore, they established myriad realms and delegated representatives, instituting a system whereby the representatives came to court so that the king would be familiar with the representatives, and in turn, had the representatives become familiar with the people of their realms. In this way, the government was able to reach where it otherwise could not, and be close to people who were far away and could not be otherwise approached. In other words, it was a matter of familiarity and association with the multitudes of people through familiarity and association with the representatives of government. When practitioners of the Tao understand the principles of yin and yang, the earthly and the celestial, the 5 elements of vitality, spirit, nature, feeling, and energy, and the 5 virtues of benevolence, justice, courtesy, knowledge, and truthfulness, and cause them to dwell in their proper positions, this is like setting up realms and establishing government representatives. When yin and yang are harmonized, the 5 elements are a unified force, and the 5 virtues are combined. This is like association with the representatives. When the 5 elements are united and the 5 virtues conjoined, all entanglements dissolve, and all that is good reaches the same goal. This is like association with the people through association with the representatives. In the body of the hexagram, the yang in the center of water is in the honored position of correct balance. This represents the mind of Tao. Consciousness of reality. When the mind of Tao is manifest, benevolence, justice, courtesy, and knowledge are rooted in the heart. The tangle of myriad principles is integrated fully into the celestial design. The sprouts of living potential grow and fill the world. The golden flowers of spiritual energy bloom. You may gather them freely. They are spiritual medicines. This is like water flowing on the earth, reaching everywhere. The kings of yore associated with their representatives, practitioners of the Tao associate with all that is good. The principle is the same. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 16, joy. Thunder above, earth below. When thunder emerges, the earth stirs. Joy. Thus did the kings of yore make music to honor virtue, offering it in abundance to God, thereby to share it with their ancestors. Joy is happiness. Above is thunder, below is earth. This is thunder coming from the earth, stirring and rising up. When positive energy prevails harmoniously, all things are pleasantly uplifted by it. This is the image of joy. What the kings of yore saw in this was that virtue is what is commanded by heaven and is the root of human life, so it should be a joy to cultivate and practice it. Therefore, they made music to honor virtue. Joy is that whereby virtue is made harmonious. Virtue is that whereby joy is made complete. If one creates enjoyments without honoring virtue, that is called creating enjoyment in the midst of misery. But by using joy to harmonize virtue, the virtue becomes more exalted. By using virtue to create joy, the joy becomes more harmonious. When virtue and joy coincide, this is called true happiness. The richness of the music of that happiness and joy is sufficient to offer to God and to share with the ancestors. Since what God likes is virtue, and what the ancestors like is virtue too, offerings to God and to the ancestors are offerings of virtue. When one creates enjoyment and happiness without losing virtue, this is obeying God and remembering the ancestors. Obeying God is answering heaven. Remembering the ancestors is repaying our debt. When people are born, they receive their lives from God and their bodies from their ancestors. The body is that whereby life is carried. Life is that whereby the body is completed. Since the body and life are inseparable, repaying our debt is answering heaven. Answering heaven is repaying our debt. When we answer heaven and repay our debt, we can be happy. Such is the effect of finding joy in honoring virtue. How can people be happy without honoring virtue? Now we will turn to our changing lines 4 and 5, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Hexagram 8, changing line 4. Accord with one outside is right and bodes well. Explanation. Flexibly according with the firm, seeing the wise and wanting to be like them, even the ignorant will become illumined. Even the weak will become strong. This is external accord being correct. Changing line 5, manifesting accord. The king uses 3 chasers and loses the game ahead. The citizens are not admonished. Auspicious. Explanation. Firm strength and proper balance. Positive energy is replete and negative energy spontaneously converts. This is manifest accord. It is not forced, but comes about naturally. It is like a king chasing game, leaving one of 4 sides open, using 3 chasers, losing the game ahead. Using 3 chasers means taking the real, taking in the receptive. Losing the game ahead means abandoning the false, letting the rebellious go. Taking the real and abandoning the false, the real comes and the false vanishes. Taking in the receptive and letting the rebellious go, the receptive attain and the rebellious disappear. When the practice of Tao gets to where the real and false are both transmuted and opposition and submission both return to the basis, then the heart is profoundly calm, always tranquil, ultimately good with no evil. Confused thoughts do not arise. It is like the citizenry spontaneously being civilized without being admonished. This is the accord of inside and outside as one energy. Next, we'll look at James de Corn's Gnostic Book of Changes, which I've left links to in the description box below. It's a PDF you could take a look at and even download if you so desired. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself, and he has synthesized several I Ching commentaries in one helpful place, and then left his summations at the end. He quotes people like Carl Jung and the Kabbalah. Our primary hexagram 8, he calls holding together. Other titles might be the symbol of subaltern assistance, union, unity, grouping, alliance, coordination, leadership, merging, as with tributaries of a river, seeking union, unification, accord, subservience, individuation, integration, judgment, leg. Holding together indicates good fortune, but let the querent re-examine himself by divination whether his virtue is great, unintermitting and firm. If so, there will be no error. Those who are ready will then join him, but those who delay will meet with misfortune. Blowfold, unity or coordination, good fortune. Further consultation of the oracle will provide an omen of great and lasting value. No error. Those whose hearts are troubled, assemble. The laggards suffer disaster. Just as the last hexagram deals ostensibly with military affairs, so does this one largely concern administration. For divination purposes, it should be regarded figuratively, unless a problem of administration is actually involved in the inquiry. Ritzimal/Karcher grouping, significant, retracing the oracle consulting, spring, perpetual trial, without fault, not soothing, on all sides coming, afterward, husbanding, pitfall. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of how you categorize people and things, and how you relate to these categories. It emphasizes that joining people and things through recognizing their essential qualities is the adequate way to handle it. The image leg. The image of the earth and over it water form holding together. The ancient kings, in accordance with this, established the various states and maintained an affectionate relation to their princes. Wilhelm/Baines. On the earth is water, the image of holding together. Thus the kings of antiquity bestowed the different states as fiefs and cultivated friendly relations with the feudal lords. Blowfold. The hexagram symbolizes water lying upon the land, coordination. This is indicated by the nature of the component trigrams. It is by cooperation between the fertile earth and the water which irrigates it that growth is achieved. The ancient rulers strengthened the realm by being on affectionate terms with the feudal lords. This may suggest dealing kindly with immediate subordinates. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Holding together denotes help, and we see in the figure inferiors docilely following their superior. All that is said in the judgment follows from the position of the dynamic line in the center of the upper trigram. Those who do not respond to him have exhausted their good fortune. Leg. The idea of union between the different members and classes of a state and how it can be secured is the subject of holding together. The dynamic line in the fifth place of authority represents the ruler to whom the subjects of all the other lines offer a ready submission. Generally, the second line is the proper correlate of the fifth, but here all of the other lines are also his subjects. Harmonious union is secured by the sovereign authority of the ruler, but he is warned to see that his virtue is worthy of his position, and his subjects are warned not to delay in submitting to him. Those who do not seek to promote and enjoy union until it is too late are left out in the cold. The sentiment is the same as that in the lines of Shakespeare about the tide in the affairs of men. In the image, water upon the face of the earth suggests an emblem of close union. Notes and paraphrases, judgment. The success of the work is determined by the proper integration of intrapsychic forces. Separated and disparate forces are an index of its failure. Unremitting willpower is the catalyst for unity. Do you have the requisite will to facilitate this goal? Ask the oracle. The image. Archetypal intelligences, the gods, created many dimensions of awareness. Jung's collective unconscious or objective psyche, maintaining benevolent contact with them all. Benevolent refers to original intent, Plato's realm of ideal forms, the good. This is the image of an evolving multiverse of awareness, a human psyche. Psychologically interpreted, holding together depicts the self as the fifth line ruler surrounded by its satellite complexes. Astrologically rendered, we see the same image in the solar system with its sun surrounded by planets, each symbolizing a faculty within the psyche, e.g. Mercury is intellect, Mars is aggression, etc. Viewed this way, the eighth hexagram portrays the functioning of a divine process. Whenever the ancient kings are mentioned in the I Ching, we can take them as the symbolic architects of a primordial ideal of perfection. The image in holding together is an allegory of the self establishing the various complexes within the psyche, the sun establishing its planets, so that they can evolve into a reflection of the ideal intent of the work. In the timeless realms of hyperspace, the Garden of Eden and the New Jerusalem exist simultaneously, although here in space-time, as key facilitators in a work in progress, we labor somewhere between cause and effect. Although the psyche of a functional human being is held together relatively coherently, its inner relationships are continuously orbiting each other in cycles of change. Astrological transits symbolize such changes. The Tao of psychic evolution, the work, is to respond to the changes consciously and coherently so that all forces eventually become synchronized with the will of their source. The ego's sole responsibility is to do this in the space-time dimension for the benefit of the self. A quote from Roberto Acciagoli in Psychosynthesis. In whatever way one may conceive the relationship between the individual self and the universal self, be they regarded as identical or similar, distinct or united, it is most important to recognize clearly and to retain ever present in theory and practice the difference that exists between the self in its essential nature, that which has been called the fount, the center, the deeper being, the apex of ourselves, and the small ordinary personality, the little self or ego, of which we are normally conscious. The disregard of this vital distinction leads to absurd and dangerous consequences. The message for the superior man in this hexagram is the only injunction in the Book of Changes to reconsult the oracle. Implicit in this curious challenge is a need to evaluate your competence to further the work. The answer should tell you the condition of your will. A quote from Roberto Acciagoli in Psychosynthesis. The will is, curiously, not recognized as the central and fundamental function of the ego. It has often been depreciated as being ineffective against the various drives and the power of the imagination, or it has been considered with suspicion as leading to self-assertion, will to power. But the latter is only a perverted use of the will, while the apparent futility of the will is due only to a faulty and unintelligent use. The will is ineffective only when it attempts to act in opposition to the imagination and to the other psychological functions, while its skillful and consequently successful use consists in regulating and directing all other functions toward a deliberately chosen and affirmed aim. The differences between hexagrams number 7 and number 8 are the differences between a geocentric and a heliocentric frame of reference, emphasizing the fact that the ego and the self each perceive the psyche from an entirely different point of view. A quote from Isaiah 55, 6-9. "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways. It is Yahweh who speaks. Yes, the heavens are as high above earth as my ways are above your ways, my thoughts above your thoughts." And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Give me just a second. No, I know that I turned it on. Maybe I didn't. All right, give me a second. Wake up. Apologies. Okay. That works. Or does not. There we are. Back at it. Okay. Hexagram 16, enthusiasm, or self-deception, or repose, are supporting hexagram. Other titles might be the symbol of harmonious joy, repose, happiness, providing for / provision, excess, merriment, self-confidence, contentment, harmonize, excitement, intemperance, self-deception. A quote from D.F. Hook, "Repose in the absolute confidence that the action now being taken is right," also refers to music. Judgment, leg. Enthusiasm indicates that feudal princes may be set up and the army advantageously mobilized. Blowfold, repose profits those engaged in building up the country and sending forth armies. This means that perfect certainty as to the rightness of our cause is of great value under the conditions mentioned. The usual meaning of this character is beforehand or happiness. In the English translation of Wilhelm's version, it appears as enthusiasm. Repose was suggested by the Chinese experts who kindly vetted this manuscript. At first, I felt hesitant about adopting it until I realized that where it is used favorably, it must be understood as the kind of mental repose which follows absolute confidence that the action now being taken is the right one. In lines 1, 3, and 6, however, it clearly means failure to act when action is essential. In line 5, failure to act owing to incapacity. Lu, happiness. It is of benefit to build up the country or business and send the army forth. Receivers of this hexagram should be wary of exhibiting excessive enthusiasm when beginning a new undertaking. If they are not, there will be misfortune. The hexagram also advises that everything necessary for advancement should be made ready. Then, if an opportunity presents itself, it should be seized immediately, without hesitation. Ritzema/Karcher, providing for, harvesting, installing feudatories to move legions. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of what is needed to meet the future. It emphasizes that accumulating strength through foresight and prudence so things can be fully enjoyed is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to provide for. Cleary 1, joy. It is advantageous to set up a ruler and mobilize the army. Wu, merriment indicates the advantage of establishing principalities and taking military actions. The image. Leg. Thunder exploding out of the earth, the image of enthusiasm. The ancient kings, in accordance with this, composed their music and honored virtue, offering it especially to God when they worshipped him at the service of their ancestors. Wilhelm/Baines, thunder comes resounding out of the earth, the image of enthusiasm. Thus the ancient kings made music in order to honor merit and offered it with splendor to the supreme deity, inviting their ancestors to be present. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes thunder over the earth. The ancient rulers venerated heaven's gifts with solemn music, and they sacrificed abundantly to the supreme Lord of heaven in order to be worthy of their ancestors. Lu, thunder arising from the earth symbolizes happiness. The ancient kings composed music to honor virtue, offering it to God and the spirits of their ancestors. Ritzema/Karcher, thunder issuing forth from earth impetuously, providing for. The earlier kings used arousing delight to extol actualizing Tao, exalting worship's supreme above, using equalizing the grandfather predecessors. To actualize Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire. D, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Wu, thunder breaks out above the earth with a boom. This is merriment. Thus the ancient kings used music to praise virtuous accomplishments and made grand offerings to the supreme being to be accompanied by their ancestors. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, enthusiasm shows one dynamic line inspiring responsive obedience in all the others. Devoted obedience takes action. Such obedient action conforms to natural law and creates order and discipline in the people. The planets and the seasons follow their natural cycles. The sages similarly obey the laws of their nature, and the people acknowledge their regulations and punishments as just. Leg, enthusiasm shows harmony and contentment throughout the kingdom, a time when the people rejoice in their sovereign and readily obey him. At such a time, his appointments and any military undertakings would be hailed and supported. Because he is close to the fifth place of dignity, the dynamic fourth line is seen as the chief executive officer of the ruler. The ruler has confidence in him, and all of the magnetic lines yield their obedience. Obedience is the attribute of the lower trigram, which here takes the initiative and uses movement, which is the attribute of the upper trigram. The symbolism of the image is more obscure than usual. The use of music at sacrifices is supposed to assist in producing the union between God and his worshippers, as well as the present and past generations. Notes and paraphrases judgment. Delegate authority and gather your forces. The superior man synchronizes his will with the intent of the self via the principles of the work. Enthusiasm is the reverse of the preceding hexagram of temperance. In temperance, we saw the calm strength of a mountain concealed within the earth. In enthusiasm, we see thunder exploding out of the ground into the sky. The strength that was formerly tempered and restrained is now released. It is significant to note that while every line of temperance is more or less favorable, every line of enthusiasm is either negative or cautionary. Even the generally positive fourth line carries a hint of warning about doubt. Negatively, self-deception, the passion of true believers, seems to be what this hexagram is portraying. The figure often suggests a callow or diluted buoyancy, the kind of outlook associated with romantic idealists. In its most negative aspect, enthusiasm is intemperance, the exact opposite of the moderation and restraint shown in the preceding hexagram. The behavior of an untrained Great Dane puppy suddenly bursting into a formal dinner party could be described as enthusiasm, but hardly a desirable form thereof. The lower trigram of obedient devotion has suddenly employed the action and energy of the upper trigram of thunderous shock to express itself. This is inconsistent with the code of the superior man. Conversely, in its most positive sense, enthusiasm suggests the surety of total self-confidence. Blofeld translates this as repose, explaining that the name was suggested to him by his Chinese advisors. We begin to understand this subtle distinction when we compare the seemingly obscure connection with music in the image with a passage from Chuang-Tzu. He who understands the music of heaven lives in accordance with nature in his life and takes part in the process of change of things in his death. In repose, his character is in harmony with the yin principle. In activity, his movement is in harmony with the yang principle. Therefore, he who understands the music of heaven is not blamed by heaven or criticized by men. It is said, in action he is like heaven. In repose he is like the earth. Because his mind has found repose, therefore the creation pays homage to him. To understand the music of heaven is to attain repose, which is another way of describing the tranquility that comes with furthering the intent of the self. The only dynamic line in the hexagram is in the minister's place, just below the fifth line ruler. He has the confidence of his sovereign, and his actions therefore accord with heaven. We can turn to the Stoics to find an illustration of this idea. A quote from Epictetus: "My will is simply that which comes to pass, for I esteem what God wills better than what I will. To him will I cleave as his minister and attendant, having the same movements, the same desires, in a word, the same will as he." Thus we see that the hexagram can describe either one of two opposite conditions: the intemperate enthusiasm of ego confidence, a synonym for self-deception, or the calm repose of true self-confidence. The 15th and 16th hexagrams, each the inverse of the other, represent magnetic and dynamic aspects of the same general idea. Enthusiasm, when it emanates from the self, is just temperance in action. And our changing lines, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. So back to our primary hexagram 8, accord or holding together. We will read changing line 4. Leg. The fourth line magnetic shows its subject seeking for union with one beyond herself. With firm correctness there will be good fortune. Wilhelm / Baines. Hold to him outwardly also. Perseverance brings good fortune. Blowfold. He cooperates with people beyond his immediate circle. Righteous persistence will bring good fortune. Lu. Union outside. Continuing brings good fortune. Ritsuma/Karcher. Outside grouping it. Trial. Significant. Slofnacy. From outside, ally with him. Determination is auspicious. Why can't I say that word? A-L-L-Y. Good God. Okay. Wu. He gives his support to the exterior one. To be persevering will be auspicious. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Union is sought with one beyond herself, and in this case with a worthy object. She is following the ruler above her. Wilhelm/Baines. Hold outwardly also to people of worth, in order thus to follow the one above. Blowfold. Cooperation with such people and leading them into virtuous ways must be accomplished by working through their leaders. Ritzimus/Karcher. Adhering to the above indeed. Clary 2. Accord with the wise outside is the way to follow the advanced. Wu. He gives support to the exterior one, who is a good man, because he follows the one above him. Leg. The one beyond herself is the ruler or king who is the subject of line 5, and with whom union ought to be sought. The magnetic line, moreover, is in a place proper to her, and if she is firm and correct, there will be good fortune. Notes and paraphrases. Sue. The minister shows open loyalty to his king. This behavior contrasts to that of a person without a post. The latter should remain reserved, so as to retain his personal honor. Wing. You are in close contact with the center of your community. This may refer to the leader or ruler. Show your support openly, but do not forget who you are or lose yourself in your allegiances. Editor. Wilhelm suggests the idea of an outward display of allegiance. The quality of your commitment to the work is seen in your actions and way of life. Sometimes the line suggests the idea of having confidence in yourself or confidence in your intuition. At its simplest level, it can just mean make connections beyond your immediate circle. A quote from Swedenborg in Arcana Coelestia. Regeneration is for nothing else than that the natural ego may be subjugated and the spiritual self obtain dominion. And the natural is subjugated when it is brought into correspondence. And when the natural is brought into correspondence, it no longer resists, but acts as it is commanded, and follows the behest of the spiritual, scarcely otherwise than as the acts of the body obey the dictates of the will. James Acorn breaks changing line 4 into 3 possible succinct definitions, A, B, and C. A. Live your beliefs. Walk your talk. B. Get in touch with what is beyond you. Seek a higher comprehension. And C. Get in touch with your basic motivations. And changing line 5. The 5th line dynamic, this is leg, affords the most illustrious instance of seeking union and attachment. We see in it the king urging his pursuit of the game only in 3 directions and allowing the escape of all the animals before him, while the people of his towns do not warn one another to prevent it. There will be good fortune. Wilhelm/Baines, manifestation of holding together. In the hunt, the king uses beaters on 3 sides only and foregoes game that runs off in front. The citizens need no warning. Good fortune. Blowfold. Relying on his people's cooperation, the king pursues game which is enclosed on 3 sides, but loses the quarry ahead. This is because the local people were not warned. This would seem to suggest that our loss is not due to disloyalty, but to having failed to take people into our confidence. Righteous persistence brings good fortune. Lu. Union with honor. The king hunts on 3 sides only, losing game through the front. The people are not afraid. Good fortune. Ritzimus/Karcher, manifest grouping. Not groping. The king avails of 3 beaters, letting go the preceding wild fowl. Capital people are not admonished. Significant. Slofnacy. lustriously ally, A-L-L-Y. The king herewith thrice drives the hunt, losing the front catch. The city men are not warned, auspicious. Clary 1, manifesting a chord, the king uses 3 chasers and loses the game ahead. The citizens are not admonished, auspicious. Clary 2, manifest a chord, the local people are not warned, etc. Woo. This line reveals the essence of allegiance. The king deploys a 3-sided chase in his hunt, such that he allows the game in front of him to escape. The townspeople do not warn one another of the king's doing. There will be auspiciousness. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. The good fortune is because of the line's correct and central place. The king takes only those animals who present themselves obediently. He allows the others to escape. That the people do not warn one another to prevent the animals to escape shows how the king, in his high eminence, has made them pursue the due course. Wilhelm/Baines. The position is correct and central, discarding those who resist, accepting the devoted. This is the meaning of foregoes game that runs off in front. The citizens need no warning, for the one above makes them central. Blofeld. This good fortune is indicated by the central position of the ruling line, leaving alone those difficult to catch and following where the chances seem good. The king nevertheless loses the game in front of him. This means that although the local people were not warned, the ruler adopts a fair and liberal policy. The implication is that such a policy is required for the success of our plans. Ritzema/Karcher. Situation correctly centered indeed, stowing away countering, grasping yielding, letting go the preceding wildfowl indeed. Capital people not admonished, commissioning centering above indeed. Clary 2. The local people are not warned because the ruler has effected balance. Woo. To allow the game in front of him to escape means setting free those who want to leave and taking in those who want to come, etc. Leg. As the ruler, line 5 is the center of union. The ancient rule for hunting expeditions was that after the beating was completed and the king was ready to commence taking game, one side of the enclosure into which it had been driven was left open and unguarded. This was proof of the royal benevolence which didn't want to make an end of all the creatures inside. So well known and understood was this benevolent principle that all of his subjects cooperated in carrying it out. The union shown here is therefore characterized by mutual confidence and the appreciation of benevolent virtue. Notes and paraphrases. Sue. The superior ruler accepts those who voluntarily come to him and lets others go who care to go. He neither invites nor flatters. Union is based on mutual confidence and appreciation. Wing. You can trust fate at this time to bring you together with those who would further you. There is a natural attraction at work here. The atmosphere is liberal, and much can be accomplished. The time is auspicious indeed. Editor. This line is the subject of the judgment and most of the commentary on the judgment. It depicts a shakedown or refining process. In terms of the work, because the ego has free will, it always has the option of escape. The self allows it to choose, because free choice is essential to any permanent psychic integration. A coerced synthesis could hardly be expected to hold together for very long. Blofeld's translation and note seem to miss this idea. A quote from ZBS Halevi in A Kabbalistic Universe. A human being can choose to deny his individuality or truth, although sooner or later he must inevitably choose, of his own free will, to remain dormant or submit to the way of heaven. James DeCorn breaks changing line 5 down into 4 possible succinct definitions, A, B, C, and D. A, a sorting out process. Some elements are gathered and some discarded. Could be a test of your discrimination. B, psychic forces reposition themselves in relation to their source. C, the decision is yours whether or not to follow the demands of the work. And D, astute choice separates truth from error. Next, we will look at our secret hexagram, which is the hidden influence behind the situation. And to get the secret hexagram, we look at second, third, fourth lines for our bottom trigram, and third, fourth, and fifth lines of our supporting hexagram for our top or outer trigram. So that's going to be broken, 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 and then broken, solid, broken, which is a chord. Our secret hexagram is a chord, which is our primary hexagram. Broken, broken, broken. Broken, solid, broken. All right, we'll read it though. So the hidden influence behind accord and joy is accord. Very, very interesting. Okay. Hexagram 8, Alliance, the Oracle. This is the omen of one who follows a good role model, cultivates greatness, then becomes a role model that others follow. Alliance of heart and mind. Eternal well-being is prophesied. Be a connector, one who brings people together. To bring many together, you occupy many worlds. Have your foot in many doors. Then, when tides turn, no matter in which direction, you have a safety net. Two stand together, one linked to the other, bonding for strength and alliance. Kinship. Seek alliances with those who share your truth. Kings gain innumerable territories by maintaining close relations with feudal lords. Good auspices to come. To conquer the great floods and enemies, hold an assembly of the gods on the mountain. This is an auspicious hexagram that speaks of good fortune. It bodes well-being if your intentions are in good faith. The pure of heart will be free of blame. However, the last to arrive meets misfortune. The last chieftain to arrive at the king's court was beheaded. A budding rebellion is simmering. All right, now we will get a randomly drawn chapter from the Tao Te Ching while we seek to sum up the reading. Our primary hexagram accord we just read in Benabel Wen. And it has the trigram Kan water above Kun earth. And the water flows over the vast earth. And the idea is people according with one another. And the way accord is brought about functionally well can be kind of like pointed to in our changing line 5, which showed a king creating a hunting party, and they would scare the creatures or something into like a 3-sided square, possibly, is what it sounds like, and they would leave one of the sides open. And the idea was that if any of the animals escaped out the one side that they left open, they would let them go. And so accord in that instance was to be something that was each person accorded of their own will, that the game or the creatures they were hunting is like the people. It is something where in James de Corn's Gnostic Book of Changes, he talks about how the lowercase self can only accord with the higher self through its own choice, and it's up to that self to choose that. In the breakdown of Changing Line 5, it's broken down into 4 succinct possible definitions, and the third definition is the decision is yours whether or not to follow the demands of the work. In our supporting hexagram 16, joy, this, I think music was involved in this, and yeah, thunder is springing from the earth. But in James DeCorn's Gnostic Book of Changes, he talks about enthusiasm, is what he called it, or joy, could be improperly applied. So it could just be joy for joy's sake. But in some of the other commentaries, it was talking about having joy accord with what was right, with virtue, and then that would make joy complete. And if and joy being in accord with virtue makes virtue, I've forgotten what he said, but it livens it up, possibly, something like that. It reminds me of celebrations going on. We're in the December holidays right now, and it makes me think of how we can be celebratory, but when it's not aligned with the virtue, celebration can be misplaced. It can be not in any kind of correlation with anything virtuous, potentially. And in virtue, partially what it's referring to is the honoring of God and the ancestors, and in terms of what is virtuous. So seeking in this instance to be having proper joy and enthusiasm would be to have it be in harmony with the times and also with others, and that hopefully, you know, the goal would be for all to be virtuous and in harmony and have that accord we were talking about, that each needs to take on as their own rather than having it forced on them. It makes me think of, there's this, I don't know why this movie in particular is coming to mind, but there's this movie, I think it was called like Winter Train or something, I can't remember, but in the front, there's all the wealthy in this train, and then the really poor people were in the back of the train that didn't have like heat or anything like that. There's all kinds of movies and ideas that are similar to that, but yeah, not having other people be able to partake of our joy in like a communal way means that it's kind of out of place. It's like a bunch of wealthy people eating and drinking while everyone else suffers in the cold. Something was just standing out in my head about these. I'm just going to move on because I forgot. Anyway, our secret hexagram, which is the hidden influence behind the entire situation, is also a chord. Also, our changing line 4. Let's look at that real quick. Broken down into 3 succinct possible definitions by James DeCorn is A, live your beliefs, walk your talk. B, get in touch with what is beyond you, seek a higher comprehension. And C, get in touch with your basic motivations. That's right. So the idea was that some people we should seek out externally who are following, source, or the Tao, and that will help us align with the Tao as well. So that's kind of like seeking to align externally with someone external who is aligning with the Tao is one way of aligning ourselves with the Tao. And then in changing line 5, it's the outer and the inner being in accord with one another. And so that that higher comprehension is something that's going on both internally and externally. And again, I'll break down changing line 5 in those 4 possible succinct definitions: A, B, C, and D. A sorting out process. Some elements are gathered and some discarded. Could be a test of your discrimination. B, psychic forces reposition themselves in relation to their source. C, the decision is yours whether or not to follow the demands of the work. And D, astute choice separates truth from error. It seems to be a fruitful time for people to be connected and in accord with one another. And that is something that can't be forced. Well, it could be, but that's not going to be a fruitful way to have accord function well. In this reading, it seems to imply that the fruitful accord will be when everyone accords together from the heart, so to speak, and not from any external accord placed onto them from outside. And each person has their own responsibility to seek out ways to integrate with source, their own will with the will of the self. And that can be done in changing line 4 through following those who we see are in accord with the self as much as possible. And that can help kind of like strengthen that sense within ourselves of what alignment might look like. And then ideally, we would be grouped together in such a way. When it was talking about government in accord, it was talking about how the kings of yore established governments where the feudal lords would come from all the different regions and gather together, and the sage king or whoever it was would be able to commune with them and get to know them, and they in turn would get to know the people in their regions. And in this way, the influence that would not easily be able to reach certain areas could then reach those areas more effectively. So it's kind of like a arrangement of organization that allows for accord to happen in a certain flow. So, and then also the emphasis on that not being a forced thing. It would likely be something where the natural virtues of somebody would be the thing that would draw others to them in order to, like changing line 4, look up to in a way, or kind of draw the energy, kind of like tune the resonance to in such a way where that resonance could be developed in oneself of that kind of connection to source or the Tao. And that each person has that responsibility to kind of like, however they can, accord with truth and true reality. And I've been hearing, and also kind of the entire reason I put this whole channel together and didn't just do these readings for myself, is that I felt that there would be a time where it would be beneficial to be in accord with each other in a harmonious way that was based on integrity and based on virtue, and something that people could gather around naturally and not in a forced way. And that would be different than the kind of barriers that we have that are largely enforced. And find your tribe, that kind of an idea. Have community, like true community, where people can be communing from the heart. And that kind of beauty that happens when people can gather together and celebrate something that's worth celebrating. And that it can be something where, because it's based on virtue, it honors the divine and it honors the ancestors. And so it can be something that you don't have to feel bad about celebrating. But coming back to that, Witch and Scythe talked about seeing how in the future and even now growing more and more, it seems like the best way to be effective in kind of the changes of the times is going to be in communion with others. And natural communions, rather than a forced communion, I think would be more enjoyable for everyone. And it would spring from the heart. It would be something where we can see kind of like the ideals and virtues that we view as being something that it might call divine even. And that's something maybe our ancestors would have valued, you know, the ones that we would follow and you know, we would call righteous, like the highest ideals of the ancestors. That if we're resonating and gathering around purity and truth and those high virtues, I-ming had a list of them. I'm going to read this section on joy out of I-ming's Taoist I Ching, and then the commentary section. What the kings of yore saw in this was that virtue is what is commanded by heaven and is the root of human life. So it should be a joy to cultivate and practice it. Therefore they made music to honor virtue. Joy is that whereby virtue is made harmonious. Virtue is that whereby joy is made complete. If one creates enjoyments without honoring virtue, that is called creating enjoyment in the midst of misery. But by using joy to harmonize virtue, the virtue becomes more exalted. By using virtue to create joy, the joy becomes more harmonious. When virtue and joy coincide, this is called true happiness. The richness of the music of that happiness and joy is sufficient to offer to God and to share with the ancestors. Since what God likes is virtue, and what the ancestors like is virtue too, offerings to God and to the ancestors are offerings of virtue. When one creates enjoyment and happiness without losing virtue, this is obeying God and remembering the ancestors. Obeying God is answering heaven. Remembering the ancestors is repaying our debt. When people are born, they receive their lives from God and their bodies from their ancestors. The body is that whereby life is carried. Life is that whereby the body is completed. Since the body and life are inseparable, repaying our debt is answering heaven. Answering heaven is repaying our debt. When we answer heaven and repay our debt, we can be happy. Such is the effect of finding joy in honoring virtue. How can people be happy without honoring virtue? And 8, let me see. Here we go. The 5 virtues. They talk about the 5 virtues. So 5 virtues are benevolence, justice, courtesy, and knowledge. I'll read a chord as well. out of the commentary section. What the ancient kings saw in this was that the world is vast and there is a limit to the exercise of government by one person, so that one person cannot associate familiarly with everyone. Therefore, they established myriad realms and delegated representatives, instituting a system whereby the representatives came to court so that the king would be familiar with the representatives, and in turn had the representatives become familiar with the people of their realms. In this way, government was able to reach where it otherwise could not, and be close to people who were far away and could not be otherwise approached. In other words, it was a matter of familiarity and association with the multitudes of people through familiarity and association with the representatives of government. When practitioners of the Tao understand the principles of yin and yang, the earthly and the celestial, the 5 elements of vitality, spirit, nature, feeling, and energy, and the 5 virtues of benevolence, justice, courtesy, knowledge, and truthfulness, and cause them to dwell in their proper positions, this is like setting up realms and establishing government representatives. When yin and yang are harmonized, the 5 elements are unified, a unified force, and the 5 virtues are combined. This is like association with the representatives. When the 5 elements are united and the 5 virtues conjoined, all entanglements dissolve, and all that is good reaches the same goal. This is like association with the people through association with the representatives. In the body of the hexagram, the yang in the center of water is in the honored position of correct balance. This represents the mind of Tao. This represents the mind of Tao, consciousness of reality. When the mind of Tao is manifest, benevolence, justice, courtesy, and knowledge are rooted in the heart. The tangle of myriad principles is integrated fully into the celestial design. The sprouts of living potential grow and fill the world. The golden flowers of spiritual energy bloom. You may gather them freely. They are spiritual medicines. This is like water flowing on the earth, reaching everywhere. The kings of yore associated with their representatives. Practitioners of the Tao associate with all that is good. The principle is the same. So it's like gathering around what is good, what you can imagine is good. But not in terms of what society considers good, but what heaven, in these commentaries, they would say heaven associates as good. The virtues, benevolence, justice, courtesy, knowledge, and I think it said truthfulness or wisdom. I guess an ideal that I have for this work, as I am learning it and picking it up, is to not only learn for myself, but also provide a platform that others can learn the same stuff, the same alchemy, the same virtuous path, the same attuning with the Tao or nature of true reality, and can thereby take and do whatever they want with it. Hopefully for the highest ideals or the ways that they themselves are being called to act in their own lives. But it's almost like resonating with an energy or a vibration. And if you can hone your instrument so that it reverberates or resonates with a certain tone, then things coming in proximity or near around that are going to, if they have the capacity, resonate with that same tone. And you get enough of that going on and a space being held for a certain resonance of that certain tone. If there's enough capacity for that space to be holding space, if we all hold space for that resonance and that joy or the joy or enthusiasm of that thunder bursting from the earth in spring, that sound, that reverberation,
to be kind of carried. It doesn't just hit once, it kind of carries, and we hold that reverberation. If we sit and soak in that resonance, at a certain point, that resonance just is something that is inherent within us, and we want to hone it and make sure that it is being the thing that is resounding louder than the off tone noises. But if we can hold space for that, I think it's something that is going to pop up in the world just through sheer resonance. It's going to be something that you don't have to force any kind of like external stuff on people if there's the ability for something pure to spring from within that already is inherently there in each. And it's kind of like that idea of leaving opening for the game to escape, where if somebody is not seeking resonance, then they don't have to partake, so to speak. They don't have to take part in it. It would be something where only so this, like the idea of accord and people, like I was talking about Witch Inside, talking about not only that, Rayleigh Easterling, she talked about it as well as, and I mean, it seems pretty obvious that as we're changing into this kind of like new era that we're entering into, it does seem obvious that this natural community of interrelation between all of us is something that's going to be of great value and almost the way, essentially, of the new way that things happen and that we interrelate. And that has to be authentic. It's got to be authentic, and it's got to be desired by each person that's involved with that. So in engaging with others on my channel, with other people that have channels, I suppose it's almost happened kind of like as a secondary result that possibly some of that has taken place, that resonance where it's just people with a similar ideal or similar resonance, or through kind of natural bonds that is fostered over time. And me posting stuff on my channel of other people's channels, I think gives people an opportunity to kind of see whether or not they resonate. And it doesn't mean that it has to be the same kind of thing where anyone else post anything of mine on their channels, for instance. But it's been interesting to kind of like accidentally come into some sort of community that's different than kind of like a community with like obvious borders, or ones that are due to, like a membership or something like that. It's almost like just through the heart and accord with each other's hearts. That's been kind of like the natural result, is that can be the tuning factor that allows there to be that friendship or blossoming of community. So in a way, it feels as though this is naturally leading into that next stage of human evolution, if that's what you would want to use to describe it. But that kind of like community feel of people authentically engaging in each other's lives and taking part and interest in each other's personal expressions for something like that to take place. But obviously, those things should be based on virtue and all of the stuff that would please the divine and the ancestors. So I guess that's kind of the goal, is to see how each of us aligns with that resonance of what resonates with the Tao, the divine, God, source, the universe, what the natural tune is, what's that natural of the earth. And no matter where we gather, I mean, at each moment, any person could be the representative of that the idea of the sage king that others are looking up to in Changing Line 4, in order to kind of resonate on their own and in their own internal worlds, in order to foster that growth of that resonance and that kind of stripping away of all the things that don't resonate. That can be a natural process, that just resonance occurs and increases in volume and depth and width. But yeah, it happens in all kinds of ways, not just this, obviously. But that's how I see it, since that's what I'm taking part in. And doing my best to be a vessel of the Tao, so to speak, that I'm attuning the will of the lowercase self to the will of the higher case self, the self. And that the self is governing, would be the self that governs all, eventually. And that is something that each person has to choose. It's not forced on anyone. Though the way of the Tao is not through force. It's not through the ways of war and all of those things. Like, those are last measures, not things we do just to threaten other people because we want them to do what we want them to do. Ego-like structures based on ego-like goals are not sustainable in a world that is limited in resources. And I mean, as vast as the world is, it's interesting how quickly it seems like in this modern age we've taxed the limits of it to the point where at any moment a giant iceberg can break off. I can't remember what it's called, but there's one that if it breaks off the landmass that it's attached to, which it seems like it's going to do at any moment, like our oceans go up by however many meters or whatever it is, that would really devastate a lot of places and would be based on someone's perspective. I watched this thing on the ecology of the planet and all of that, and the state that we're in conservation and trying to keep that kind of shit from happening. But if that happens, like what she said about it is we would not be able to recover from that. So, we could run around and freak out about all kinds of things about that, but really, I think all we can do is really, in the beginning stages, is try to come to an accord. Can't really do much if we're all just unwilling to take responsibility for our own selves and see how, yes, there's all kinds of conflict in the world and all kinds of corruption, but how are we either promoting that corruption or not? Are we aligning ourselves with those who align themselves with the Tao in order to train, like kind of a master-student relationship situation? Are we fostering that within ourselves with the things that we focus on? And how we show up in community type interactions? Are we holding to those higher virtues? Knowledge, courtesy, truthfulness, justice, wisdom, knowledge. Or are we running around pointing the finger at ego-based structures that we ourselves are upholding within ourselves, that we're, our internal society is no different. We're just a carbon copy of our society that we live in that is not really based on the Tao or the will of the divine or the self. So how can we foster that resonance within a world that seems counter to it? Is it possible, while those systems are crumbling, for a resonance to build in reverberation and loudness and kind of like that vibration that you sense? Can that be something that resonates and, like a singing bowl, has a sustain to it? And how do we hold space for that resonance to build and deepen and lengthen? And like the feudal lords gathering around the sage king in order to harmonize and then bring that harmony into their own areas. How do we do that? How do we create community without the restrictions of community that we don't like, where people are free to go into their own areas and carry that resonance in whatever way that carries into their atmospheres and their general surroundings, but also retains the resonance that would be something that would appeal to the ancestors and to the divine and be resonant with true reality and the Tao. I'll read chapter 61 out of the Tao Te Ching and wrap this puppy up. So, first one I'm going to read from is The Eternal Tao Te Ching by Benjamin Hoff. One that lies below. A great state is one that lies below, the restless flow of movement. All under heaven's crossings swale, all under heaven's female. The female always uses peace and stillness to overcome the male. Using her serenity, she places herself below him. In a similar way, a large state, by placing itself below a smaller one, can accordingly gain the other. And a small state, by placing itself below a larger one, can accordingly gain the other. In such a manner, someone can lower himself in order to gain. Being lower, he will thereby attain the advantage. A large state desires to unite and feed people. A small state desires to bring in and serve people. So each of them obtains what it wants. It is fitting for that which is great to lower itself. And next translation is by Jia Fu Feng and Jane English. Chapter 61. A great country is like low land. It is the meeting ground of the universe, the mother of the universe. The female overcomes the male with stillness, lying low in stillness. Therefore, if a great country gives way to a smaller country, it will conquer the smaller country. And if a small country submits to a great country, it can conquer the great country. Therefore, those who would conquer must yield, and those who would conquer do so because they yield. A great nation needs more people. A small country needs to serve. Each gets what it wants. It is fitting for a great nation to yield.